Let me tell you something from the heart. Growing old isn't for the faint of spirit. You feel it in your bones, in your back, and even in your gut. I've seen more sunrises than I can count. And with each one, I've learned that taking care of your health becomes less about magic pills or miracle diets and more about understanding the small choices we make every day. Especially when it comes to what we put on our plates. There are vegetables out there, ones you've eaten your whole life, that might be turning against you now that you've crossed into your golden years. I say this not to scare you, but to help you. Because if there's one thing I've learned after watching friends and family battle digestive issues, fatigue, and worse, it's this. What you eat matters more now than ever. Years ago, I used to believe that all vegetables were good, that you could eat a whole garden's worth and still walk away healthy. But that's not the case anymore. As we age, our digestion slows down. Our bodies process things differently. What your stomach handled in your 40s can now leave you bloated and gassy at 70. I learned the hard way. I used to love raw broccoli. Crunchy, fresh, dipped in a bit of hummus. Then one day after a family picnic, I spent the entire night curled up on the recliner, clutching my stomach and praying it would pass. It wasn't food poisoning. It was my own body telling me, no more. Broccoli, my friends, is one of those culprits, especially raw. It's loaded with fiber, yes, but it's also got something called raffinose. Your gut has a tough time breaking it down. That means gas, cramps, and discomfort that can linger. And the worst part? You might not even connect it to the broccoli because it feels so subtle at first. But when you've got enough of those nights in a row, you start looking for answers. I once sat with an old buddy at the diner down the street. His name was Frank. Served in Korea, tough as nails but with a belly that betrayed him every time he ate a healthy dinner. He told me his doctor warned him about cabbage. I thought, cabbage? That's what they put in soup when you're sick. But it turns out, cabbage, like broccoli, is part of the cruciferous family, loaded with roughage and gas-producing compounds. For young folks with fast metabolism, maybe it's fine. But for folks like us, it's a trap. It slows things down. It sits in the gut like a stubborn guest who won't leave. Spinach was another one I didn't expect. I've always seen it as the food of strength. Popeye made it famous after all, but I learned something from my daughter who works in a nutrition clinic. Spinach is high in oxalates. Sounds like a science word, I know. But those oxalates can bind to calcium and form kidney stones. And let me tell you, I had one. Just once. Felt like swallowing glass and trying to pass it through a straw. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Seniors already struggle with hydration and calcium balance. Adding spinach into the mix without enough water or calcium buffers? That's asking for trouble. Eggplant was a surprise to me too. I always liked it grilled, but it's one of those nightshade vegetables. And as we age, nightshades can trigger inflammation. If you've got arthritis, joint pain, or general stiffness, eggplant could be making it worse. I didn't believe it until I cut it out for 2 weeks. The stiffness in my hands in the morning wasn't as bad. I could open jars again without wincing. It wasn't magic. It was just a simple change. I told my neighbor Ed. He laughed at first, called it hippie talk. Then he tried it. A month later, he was walking better than he had in years. And corn. Oh boy, I saved that one for last because I know how many folks love their corn on the cob, especially at summer barbecues. But corn is not easy on older guts. It doesn't digest well. If you've ever seen it show up whole the next day, you know what I mean. It's starchy too, which messes with blood sugar. For folks watching their sugar levels or trying to lose that stubborn belly weight, corn does more harm than good. It's not just the processed stuff either. Even fresh corn, though it smells like childhood and tastes like sunshine, can lead to bloating and sluggish digestion. Now listen, I'm not saying never touch these things again. I'm not your doctor. I'm just a man who's seen what these healthy choices can do over time. I've watched old friends suffer through sleepless nights, not knowing that their salad was the problem. I've stood by my wife while she battled kidney issues, made worse by spinach smoothies she thought were helping her bones. I've watched proud men wince with every step, not realizing the eggplant in their stew was fueling the fire in their joints. We've been sold this idea that vegetables are always good. And don't get me wrong, most of them are. But not all vegetables play fair with an aging body. Our insides change. Our systems become delicate. The key is to listen to your gut, to your body, to the little voice that says, something's not right. Don't be afraid to question the norm. Don't be afraid to try something different. Maybe steam instead of raw. Maybe skip that second helping of slaw. I found peace when I started paying attention. No more broccoli, no more cabbage. I replaced spinach with kale, cooked gently. I tossed out the eggplant and swapped in zucchini. I let go of corn and filled my plate with sweet potatoes instead. And the difference? Let me tell you, I wake up lighter. I don't feel like I'm carrying a brick in my belly. My energy is more stable. I even sleep better. There's no shame in adjusting. No shame in learning. I've buried too many friends who ignored the whispers their body sent them. They thought it was normal to feel lousy after dinner. They thought heartburn was just part of aging. It's not. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes all it takes is removing the few foods that don't love you back. You've earned your years. You've earned comfort. Don't let an innocent-looking vegetable take that from you. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to arm you with what I've learned. From trial, from error, from nights in pain and mornings in regret, from sitting at the kitchen table with a food diary and a tired soul, trying to figure out why health felt so far away. If you're nodding along, if something in this message feels familiar, then maybe it's time to take a closer look at your plate. Maybe it's time to retire a few foods that once served you well, but no longer do. It's not about giving up joy. It's about reclaiming it. Reclaiming those good days where you move without aches and eat without fear. You've got more life to live. Let your food support that. Let it lift you up instead of dragging you down. I'll end with this. Growing older is a blessing, but it comes with the responsibility of wisdom. And wisdom means knowing when to hold on and when to let go, even when it comes to a piece of broccoli. So listen close. Trust your body. Make those changes, not out of fear, but out of love, for yourself, for the years ahead, and for the peace you still deserve. Now let's clear some common questions. What emotional or psychological barriers prevent older adults from changing their eating habits, even when the food is causing harm? My friend, let me sit with you a while and share a few thoughts from a long life lived and a belly that has known both plenty and pain. You ask why older folks often struggle to change the very habits that might be making them sick. It is a question I have wrestled with in my own quiet moments, and I reckon it is not just about taste or stubbornness. No, it runs much deeper than that. Changing how we eat after 60 or 70 years on this earth is like tearing pages out of a book already written. It is not easy, not just because we are set in our ways, but because those ways are laced with memories, emotions, and the very thread of our identity. You see, when you grow up in a time when food was scarce or rationed, when meat was a luxury and sugar was measured by the spoonful, you don't just eat to satisfy hunger. You eat to feel safe. You eat to feel comfort. That slice of white bread slathered with butter and jam, that might not just be breakfast. That might be your mother's voice humming in the kitchen, or your father bringing home the paycheck that kept food on the table. To take that away is to remove something sacred. It is no small thing to say to someone who has survived war, poverty, or loss that the foods they clung to in hard times are now the enemy. It can feel like betrayal. There's also the matter of pride. We older folks, we have lived through more than most can imagine. We've buried friends, we've fought battles, not just the ones in history books, but the daily battles of raising children, keeping marriages together, paying bills, enduring loss. So when a young doctor or a well-meaning grandchild tells us that we need to stop eating fried foods or cut down on salt, it can feel like judgment, like we have failed. And let me tell you, after a lifetime of doing your best, being told you're doing it wrong now can sting more than you'd expect. And then there's fear. Oh, not the kind that makes you scream or run. It's a quieter fear, the fear of change, the fear that if we let go of our routines, our familiar meals, then maybe we'll lose more than food. Maybe we'll lose control. You have to understand that in older age, the world feels like it's moving too fast already. Phones that talk, machines that listen, everything digital and different. If the one thing that has stayed the same, the way you eat, is now supposed to change too, it can feel like there's nothing left that's steady. So we cling. Even when it hurts us, we cling. Loneliness is another heavy burden that shapes how we eat. Imagine sitting alone at the table night after night, the sound of a television in the background trying to fill the silence that once echoed with laughter and conversation. That plate of pasta or slice of cake doesn't just fill your belly, it fills a space in your heart. Eating becomes an act of companionship. And when the doctor says to eat more greens and fewer carbs, it doesn't register as health advice. It registers as taking away the one comfort that remains. There's also something about the passage of time that makes us reflective and, sometimes, resentful. We look back and think, I've lived this long. I've earned the right to eat what I want. There's a dignity in that thought, a resistance to being treated like children again. We don't want to be managed or micromanaged. Even if it means facing health consequences, we prefer to keep our autonomy. And sometimes that autonomy looks like bacon with breakfast or pie after dinner. Memory plays tricks on us too. I've spoken to many old friends who swear that their diets have always been fine, that they ate better than kids do now, and maybe they did. But they forget how much more active they were in their youth. They forget that the metabolism of a 30-year-old doesn't stay with you at 80. They forget that the body changes even when the habits stay the same. So they believe, truly and honestly, that the food is not the problem. And when they do get sick, they blame age, not the diet. Then there's grief. That one is perhaps the heaviest of all. When you lose a partner, a friend, a child, even a piece of yourself, food can become the last tangible connection to a shared life. I remember after my wife passed, I kept making her stew just the way she liked it, even though I didn't particularly care for it. But when I ate it, I felt her with me. So imagine being told that I had to stop, that I had to eat bland chicken and steamed vegetables instead. It felt like letting go of her all over again. Habit, routine, identity, grief, pride, fear, loneliness. These are not excuses. These are truths. These are the quiet weights older people carry every time they sit down to a meal. Changing eating habits is not just about willpower. It is about rewriting a part of your life story. It is about giving up something that has brought joy or comfort in exchange for something that feels uncertain or even joyless. But let me say this too. Change is not impossible. I've seen old friends take small steps and feel better for it. I've seen the light in their eyes when they realize they have more energy or less pain. But the change has to come with understanding, not demand. With love, not lectures. You have to meet people where they are. Share a new recipe instead of banning an old one. Invite, don't impose. Because even we old folks, for all our stubbornness and fears, still want to live, still want to feel good, still want to be here for the ones we love. So next time you wonder why your grandmother won't give up her sausage or why your grandfather insists on biscuits and gravy every morning, don't just see the food, see the story, see the love, the sorrow, the memories that come with every bite, and speak to that part of them. Help them write a new chapter gently, with patience, with respect. Because in the end, food is not just fuel, it is life. And changing how we eat, especially in old age, means reshaping how we live. That, my friend, is no small task. But it can be done, with heart, always with heart. How can caregivers or family members gently support seniors in recognizing and avoiding these vegetable pitfalls? Well now, that's a fine question if I ever heard one. How can caregivers or family folks gently help seniors steer clear of the common vegetable pitfalls? Let me sit back, stretch these old bones, and tell you what I've learned from both being cared for and doing the caring over many years. I've seen the world turn from growing food in backyard gardens to buying it in sterile plastic bags under fluorescent lights. And I've seen how older folks like me, with our aches and our memories, can get tripped up by the very things meant to keep us healthy. So if you truly want to help, you've got to understand not just the food, but the person holding the fork. First, know this. Most older folks grew up in a time when vegetables came from the earth, not from frozen aisles or premixed packages. We pulled carrots out of the dirt, rinsed them under the hose, and crunched them right there with the sun on our backs. Now it's all labels and expiration dates, and frankly, it's a mess of confusion for someone whose eyes aren't what they used to be. So when you see us reaching for a canned vegetable packed with sodium or a frozen mix that's been swimming in butter, don't scold. Don't roll your eyes. Instead, remember that we think we're doing the right thing. We think vegetables are vegetables, and the packaging doesn't mean much to us. The trick is to guide without shaming. What worked for me, and what I've seen work for others, is gentle education wrapped in kindness. Don't come at us with charts and rules like we're school children. Sit with us, share a meal. Maybe say something like, I tried roasting these fresh green beans the other day with just a touch of olive oil and garlic. They tasted so good I forgot they were healthy. That kind of talk works better than waving a finger and rattling off what we're doing wrong. You plant a seed that way. And if there's anything an old man knows, it's that seeds don't grow overnight. They need time, warmth, and care. Another thing that matters is inclusion. Don't just shop for us. Shop with us. Let us pick the vegetables, feel their firmness, smell the earth on them. Take the time to explain the difference between the fresh and the processed, between the ones soaked in syrup and the ones that still carry the scent of the garden. We may pretend we don't care, but deep down we appreciate being part of the process. It gives us back a bit of control, a bit of dignity. That matters more than you might think. And when it comes to cooking, invite us in. We may move slower, but we've got stories to tell while we peel and chop. Turn cooking into a shared ritual, not a task you're trying to speed through. Because when you bring us into the heart of the meal, you're also bringing us closer to understanding what goes into our bodies. And if we understand it, we're far more likely to embrace it. I remember when my granddaughter showed me how to roast Brussels sprouts with a little balsamic glaze. I had turned my nose up at Brussels sprouts for 70 years. But sharing that kitchen with her, laughing and telling stories, I gave them a try. And I'll be darned if they didn't become one of my favorites. Not because of the flavor alone, but because of the memory we made. Now we also have to talk about taste. Our taste buds change with age. Things that used to be delicious might now taste bitter or bland. That's why a senior might lean heavy on salt, butter, or even sugar to make vegetables palatable again. Instead of taking those things away cold turkey, find ways to add flavor naturally. Herbs, spices, a squeeze of lemon. These little things go a long way. And don't force someone to eat steamed broccoli every day just because it's healthy. Variety matters. Color on the plate matters. Pleasure matters. We've spent our lives eating for survival, for comfort, and for celebration. Don't expect us to suddenly start eating like rabbits without some kind of joy in it. One mistake I see often is assuming that older folks are either too fragile or too set in their ways to change. That's not true. We're adaptable. We've had to be. But what we resist is being told, not being taught. If you come in with the attitude that you know better and we need fixing, you'll hit a wall. But if you come in with humility and a willingness to listen, well, that's when we'll meet you halfway. Ask us how we used to cook cabbage or what our mothers put in the stew. Show us respect for our history and then gently introduce healthier tweaks. You'll be surprised how open we can be when we feel heard. And don't forget about the emotional side. Sometimes we eat the wrong things, not because we don't know better, but because we're sad, lonely, or scared. Food becomes comfort when everything else feels uncertain. I've seen friends eat mashed potatoes every night because it reminded them of their childhood. I've seen others skip vegetables altogether because cooking for one is just too heartbreaking. So your role isn't just about nutrition, it's about companionship. Sit down with us, talk to us, help us feel that we still matter. When someone feels loved and included, they're more likely to take care of themselves. That includes choosing better food. Of course, there will be stumbles. Some days we'll eat that creamed corn from a can or smother our spinach in cheese. Don't make it a crisis. Progress isn't perfect. Celebrate the small victories. The day we try kale for the first time, the moment we switch from margarine to olive oil. Those little changes stack up, and when they are made with love and understanding, they stick. So if you're trying to help an older loved one avoid vegetable pitfalls, remember that this isn't just about food. It's about memories, trust, dignity, and connection. We are not problems to be solved. We are people with stories, habits, and hearts that still beat strong. Treat us that way. Walk beside us. Be patient. Be kind. And for heaven's sake, don't forget to laugh with us along the way. Because sometimes healing comes not from the greens on the plate, but from the joy around the table. What are the long-term benefits beyond digestion of removing or reducing these 5 vegetables from a senior's diet? And how can this impact quality of life in later years? You've asked a question worth chewing on. What happens when an old fella like me, or anyone in their silver years, decides to cut back on 5 particular vegetables that might be doing more harm than good? And what comes of it beyond just easing the old digestive system? Let me tell you, I didn't believe it myself at first. I thought vegetables were always the good guys. That's what we were taught, wasn't it? Eat your greens. Clean your plate. They'll make you big and strong. But here's the thing. Not all vegetables treat everybody the same, especially a body that's been around the block 70 or 80 times. Some of them can stir up trouble where you least expect it. And when I started listening to my body and letting go of the ones that no longer serve me, I discovered more than just a quieter stomach. I discovered a better life. Now, before you think I've gone mad talking about vegetables like they've got bad intentions, let me explain. It's not that they're evil, it's just that some of them, like nightshades such as eggplant and peppers, or cruciferous ones like cauliflower and cabbage, can be rough on older bodies, especially those of us dealing with arthritis, thyroid issues, or sensitive guts. Tomatoes were my weakness. I used to slather tomato sauce on everything. Spaghetti, meatloaf, even scrambled eggs. But in my late 60s, I started feeling stiffness that wouldn't quit. Fingers like rusted hinges, knees that groaned louder than the floorboards. Took me years to realize that tomatoes might have been adding fuel to the fire. Once I cut back, and I mean really cut back, something changed. The inflammation started to ease. I could get out of bed in the morning without needing 5 minutes to straighten up. That kind of relief, it's not just about comfort. It gives you your freedom back. You can take walks again, work in the garden, play on the floor with your grandkids without dreading the process of getting up again. That's the kind of change that breathes life back into your days. And that right there is the first big benefit beyond digestion: mobility. When your joints aren't screaming, you start moving more, and movement is life. It keeps the heart beating strong, the muscles from wasting away, and the spirits from sinking. Another thing I noticed was clarity. My mind, once foggy and sluggish in the afternoons, started to perk up. I could read longer without drifting. I remembered names and dates a little easier. Now, I ain't saying I became a genius overnight, but I do believe inflammation reaches beyond the gut. It clouds the brain. When I took those trigger vegetables off my plate, the fog lifted. And that's a gift no one talks enough about. Mental clarity in old age is worth its weight in gold. It means fewer misunderstandings, better conversations, and holding on to the person you are for as long as possible. Sleep is another treasure I reclaimed. I used to lie awake, tossing and turning, stomach bubbling like an old coffee pot. Some of those vegetables, onions especially, would sneak into my dinner and leave me wide-eyed until 2 in the morning. But when I cut back, my nights softened. I fell asleep quicker, stayed asleep longer. And let me tell you, good sleep can change everything. It puts color back in your cheeks, it lifts your mood, it gives your body the time it needs to heal. There's a reason they say sleep is medicine. And when you're not kept awake by the rebellion in your belly, you actually get to take that medicine. Mood, now that's a funny thing in older folks. We carry so much. Memories, regrets, aches, and worries about the ones we'll someday leave behind. Some days the smallest thing can tip us into sadness or irritability. But here's what I found. When I started eating foods that nourished me instead of aggravating me, my mood lifted. It was subtle at first, a little less grumbling, a little more laughter. But over time, I noticed I didn't feel so worn down, so burdened. That lightness crept into my conversations, into how I greeted the day. Food affects mood more than we admit. When you're not in constant discomfort, when your body is not quietly battling inflammation or imbalance, you have more energy to smile, to connect, to enjoy. And then perhaps the most surprising thing of all, my skin. Yes, even this weathered old hide of mine started to look less tired, less puffy. I used to get redness around my cheeks, little flare-ups that no cream could soothe. Turns out, some of those vegetables I thought were keeping me young were sneaking in histamines and irritants that flared me up from the inside. When I cleaned up my plate, my face followed. I may not look 30 again, but I sure look like I sleep better. And that does wonders for self-esteem, even in your later years. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not telling every senior to toss out all their vegetables. No sir, I'm saying pay attention. Some of those 5 usual suspects, like tomatoes, peppers, cauliflower, onions, and even spinach, can be troublemakers for some. But if you gently reduce them, or cook them differently, or replace them with gentler alternatives, the rewards go well beyond a settled stomach. You gain ease of movement, you sharpen your thoughts, you rest better, you feel more joyful. You may even feel younger than you have in years. The beauty of it all is that these changes don't require a miracle drug or a risky procedure. Just a fork, a little awareness, and a willingness to listen to your own body. It may take time. Old habits die slow. But when you start to notice the good days outnumbering the bad, you'll know it's working. And that's what we want in our later years, isn't it? Not just more time, but better time. Days with less pain, nights with more rest, conversations with more laughter, time with loved ones that feels vibrant and alive. So if you're standing in the kitchen wondering if it's worth changing what's on your plate, let me tell you from experience, it is. It may seem small, swapping the tomato sauce, skipping the onions, choosing something a little easier on the belly, but those small changes ripple out into something much bigger. They touch every corner of your life, and in the end, they might just give you more of the moments that matter. That, my friend, is the kind of nourishment we all deserve. If you liked today's discussion, don't forget to like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to stay updated with every video we release. And yes, don't forget to share your experiences and thoughts in the comments. Every comment is special to us. Your feedback helps us improve further. We'll continue to meet you in every new video on this channel. So until next time, take care.